we do break this down into rejecting passivity as the R, engage with God as the E, the A is accept responsibility, and the L is lead courageously. Real man. First and foremost would be engaged with God, but being an R.E.A.L man just doesn't sound very cool, so we do real man. I do reject passivity, and I want to just share with you a couple minutes of what that looks like, not just for our covenant, but for being a real man. The definition of passivity is defined as a trait of remaining inactive, a lack of initiative. A trait of remaining inactive, a lack of initiative. And I sit there and we always talk about, why do men become passive? For me, I can't stand a few things in life. Bad breath, snoring, and a passive man. I struggle dearly with it. I see it and hear it all the time because a passive man is scared to tell another brother he's struggling because it's embarrassing. And a passive man is scared to tell another brother that he needs to get his life right because it involves confrontation. And a passive man is scared because it involves humiliation. Most of you have rejected passivity already by being here. A passive man checks into a hotel and doesn't tell another brother that he's on the road. A real man, as I can share with you, when we go on the road, sends a video out of us locking out the porn channels. And when that doesn't happen, a man who rejects passivity calls the brother up and says, why haven't you sent me the video yet? A passive man has a block on their internet or an email sent directly to another brother right away that he was on something he shouldn't have been looking at. A real man sends it not only to the brother, but to his wife. How's that? I have an email set up, and right away would go to Kit or to my wife. Recently, I had asked Kit if that had been updated. And it was interesting because several months ago, an MSN looking at the entertainment section, looking at a woman that I shouldn't have been looking at, led to another look, and then eventually led to a porn site. Now, that's embarrassing because we've been doing this for a long time. And the last thing I want to do is tell these brothers again, I've fallen on the internet again. I just don't want to deal with it. And the enemy feeds me the bull crap. Don't tell these brothers. Just let this one slide. Don't tell them. Just repent, and you just let them slide. And I did repent. And we have conference calls. We try to remain on a schedule of every other week, and sometimes that's tough. But the next conference call, I had to tell these brothers. And it's painful. But there's freedom in that, as John just read James 5:16. And I never felt stronger. And I always feel stronger when I tell these brothers, hey, man, I've fallen. Because you know what? Next time they're going to ask me the question. And it makes me feel stronger knowing these guys have got my back. He says it's accountability on steroids, John talked about. The bottom line of what we do is we follow Jesus together. That's what we do. We follow Jesus together. A passive man doesn't lead in reconciliation. A few years back, I had come from rejecting passivity. The best man in my wedding needed to be confronted on the fact that his head was turning way too much, and I knew it. And I got back, and I'm talking with my wife, and she says, did you say this, and did you say that, and why didn't you say this? And she's Dr. Phil and me, and I'm sitting there going, I just came from rejecting passivity. Don't tell me how to do that. And those of you who don't know me, obviously, very well, these guys do, know that when I'm right, I am darn right. I'm not coming over in your lane. I'm on the horse, and I'm not coming off. And a day went by, and I woke up the next morning, and John and I usually try to talk, as much as possible daily. He says, how's it going, man? I said, it's not going too good. I said, I'm struggling with my wife, man. She is trying to tell me my business, and I told him what happened, and I had come for rejecting passivity, a hard thing to do. And I just didn't want to come down. I'm not coming down. She's wrong. She's dead wrong. And I can't tell you how many conversations these guys will tell you we've had where our wives have been dead wrong. Now, God forbid a woman doesn't mess up, right? But we sit there and we listen to each other every time. Kit called me on Wednesday. Was it Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever day it was? I'm struggling with my wife. And I heard it. And he's heard me, and I've heard Travis. He's struggling with his wife, and Boles is struggling with his wife. When we get done with the conversation, we say the same thing every time. I'm hearing you. Now, how are you going to lead in reconciliation? But I'm right. It don't matter. How are you going to lead in reconciliation? How are you going to reject passivity because the enemy wants you to go to bed another night and not love your wife? Are you going to reject passivity and tell your wife you love her and lead in reconciliation and lay it down? A real man does that. A real man does that. A passive man takes another look at a woman in an airport and then does it the rest of the time before he gets on the flight and hopes to God he's sitting next to that woman. A man who rejects passivity, a real man, calls a brother and says, I'm struggling right now looking at a woman in an airport. Would you pray for me and hold me up and ask me tomorrow that I did not do that the rest of the time? Passivity is defined as a trait of remaining inactive, a lack of initiative. I'd like to add to that definition. Passivity is the number one ingredient for the enemy in a takedown. You just don't wake up one day and have an affair with the woman that you work with who looks good. You just don't go in the hallway, teenagers, slip, trip, and accidentally lose your virginity with a woman. You just don't watch another brother lose his life and his whole family in front of him and don't do something about it one day. You just don't do that. 1 Peter 5, verses 8 through 9. Be self-controlled and alert. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around you like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that your brothers throughout the world are undergoing the same kind of sufferings. We know that every day. We're aware of it. We blindside each other in terms of what's coming after each other. I know that this brother is constantly praying for me and asking me how I can be prayed for. I can count on that every day. We follow Jesus together. I know I can get confirmation from my man Eric, whether it's a business decision, a decision with my wife in terms of where my eyes are going. And this man rejected passivity by first laying it down to me and saying, I'm struggling with this. And the whole time, I was struggling as well. A real man rejects passivity. We try to do it every day. John's going to come up and talk about engaging with God.